Welcome back to CBSN. We are joined now by Dr. Ben Carson, Republican candidate, fresh off the stage. Dr. Carson, when your wife was here earlier, before the debate, she told us that we were going to be surprised. We were going to see a more animated Dr. Ben Carson. How do you think that you did tonight?
Well, I was prepared to jump up and down and do a few things because throughout all the previous debates, they didn't give me any time. But this was the first time they actually, asked me questions and included me in the debate. So I didn't have to jump up and down.
And so how do you think that it went? Do you feel, that you reached the South Carolina voters that you were hoping to reach? Because obviously this is a state that could be pivotal for you.
I hope so. I hope they recognize that there is a calm, rational voice here that actually has real solutions to the problems and is not going to get distracted by all the garbage.
So when your comrades on stage are arguing at each other, or yelling at the top of their lungs, and you stand there very calmly, what's going through your mind? Are you thinking, here's how I rebut that? Or are you just thinking, I'm going to get back in and I'm just going to set us all back at a level place?
Well, the latter. I'm thinking that, I will eventually get another opportunity to talk, and we will talk about something that makes sense.
Can I ask you, Dr. Carson, so your name was invoked a couple of times by the other candidates, and they suggested that because of what happened in Iowa, that Ted Cruz is a liar. Do you think Ted Cruz is a liar?
Well, there's certainly people involved in his campaign that are. He told me that he was not aware of the things that were going on there, and I have to take him at his word.
So you don't agree with the sentiment that the others threw out on stage that Ted Cruz is a liar?
I think there are liars in his campaign.
There were a couple of times tonight when the moderators actually came to you. It almost seemed like to cool things down when they got too heated. They're like, let's go to Ben Carson for 30 seconds. But do you feel like your message gets drowned out in those situations?
It gets drowned out by the gladiator crowd. We've sort of become like the ancient Romans. Their society was crumbling around them, but the only thing that they wanted to do was go to the Colosseum and see more blood and gore. And to some degree, we've become like that. But I think there are more and more people who are starting to wake up and recognize the seriousness of the situation. When you look at our financial foundation, which is about to crumble, you look at the fact that we are not taking care of our infrastructure, particularly the electric grid, which puts us at great harm. You look at our failure to be proactive on the world stage, the fact that we are using our agencies to inhibit innovation and growth rather than to encourage it. These are big problems. These are what we should be talking about.
But as a non-politician in these debates, do you think that you're giving voters enough specifics about your plans for them to really know where you would take this country? Because there have been times when you've sort of spoken in sort of broad, overarching themes when asked about specific policies, but not a lot of detail, or telling people to go to your website.
Well, that's why I do tell them to go to the website, because if you sit here and ask me about any of the policies, I can go into great detail. This Wednesday, I was at the Foreign Policy Summit for 1 hour, and they just grilled me on foreign policy, and it will be up on the website very shortly. The only thing that anybody could write about afterwards was, wow, we had no idea he had so much in-depth foreign policy knowledge. If I would have gotten into the talk that was going on today about using the Kurds as our ground forces, I could have spent a lot of time talking about where the Kurds are actually useful and where we have to use the Sunnis, and how we need to actually cut off Syria from Iraq, and how we need to tack over to Libya, and all the ramifications of that. But you can't do that in a soundbite.
Dr. Carson, can we talk about next week for a minute? What are your expectations for the primary, and if you don't meet those expectations, what happens next?
Well, what I tend to look at more than what happens with the polling is what is happening with my support and with my money. That seems to continually be growing, and there are a lot of people who want me to continue on.
But there's 6 of you left. Where would you like to finish? Obviously first, but if you don't finish first,
Because this
First,
is a state
I mean-
that should be very hospitable to
That's
your
right.
large evangelical population.
First would be very good.
what would be disappointing to you?
Second,
Third,
second
fourth?
would be okay. Third would be reasonable. Fourth, fifth, and sixth, I would not be happy.
Dr. Ben Carson, we'll keep an eye on it. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. And we'll be back with some final thoughts right after this.